What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Birds vs. Boys. You are probably watching this on the Birds vs. Boys YouTube channel. Thank you very much for giving a click on this video. If you have not yet, make sure you smash that subscribe button. We're getting so close to 1,000 subscribers, and that is our goal before the season starts. If you are new, welcome. If you are here for your second season, third season, fourth season, thank you for continuously watching and listening and subscribing and interacting with the Birds vs. Boys platform. Now, if you aren't new and you're wondering, well, where is Aiden? Aiden is actually stuck in Florida thanks to hurricane/tropical storm Debbie. He has been stuck in Florida and hopefully makes his triumphant return to Philadelphia tonight. However, now it's storming in Philadelphia. So Aiden is trying to follow the storm home. So we'll see how that goes. So in the meantime, before we can get a full episode together, the two of us, which we are planning on doing later in this week, I wanted to give a little bit of a position battle update within the Dallas Cowboys training camp. Training camp's now a few weeks in, and the Cowboys are now just a couple days away from their first joint practice with the Los Angeles Rams and then their first preseason game. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just getting closer and closer to football season. I cannot believe it. It's getting so close. But there are position battles all across the field in terms of the Dallas Cowboys. If you've been watching, if you've been listening of what Aiden and I have been bringing you, I have been thinking that there's position battles everywhere across the offensive line, left tackle, center. Those seem to be kind of working themselves out. I'll start with center. Cooper Beebe was brought in here as a draft pick. Everybody thought he was the heir apparent immediately to step in, plug and play at center. But then there's some people who are like, hey, hold on. Yeah, he was really good at K-State at guard and tackle. And I think he's the plug-and-play guard of the future when Zach Martin retires. But playing center when you've never played it in a game, not that easy, right? Snapping step, attack, second level. It's a lot. So I think we've been seeing those growing pains with Cooper Beebe. And we know that the Cowboys really like Brock Hoffman. Now, he may not be as talented of a player and have as high of a ceiling as Cooper Beebe, but right now I think he's entrenched. I think he will be the week one starter. We've seen him play for the Cowboys at center last year. He's a tough guy. And I know Mike Solari puts a lot of emphasis into veterans. So I think this will be Brock Hoffman's job day one. Left tackle, they brought back Chuma Edoga. We've seen what Chuma Edoga is in the past, and that's a turnstile. That is Dak Prescott getting hurt against Myles Garrett week one. Against Tyler Guyton, the rookie first-round pick from Oklahoma. Again, a switch in positions, right? He's only played right tackle at Oklahoma. Switching to left tackle is not that easy. Now, it's really not as hard for really good athletes, which Guyton is and known to be a smart player. And he has seen to have a lot of good flashes, right, in this camp against Micah Parsons. We've seen. But now Chuma Edoga has been playing pretty well recently in camp, and Tyler Guyton has been out with a pretty extensive chest cold, missing a couple days of practice. So we'll see when he gets back out on the practice field. But don't be surprised if Chuma Edoga lines up left tackle week one in Cleveland as the starter. Now, some Cowboys fans are going to throw up their arms and be like, you drafted this kid in the first round. You're so good at finding plug and play offensive linemen in the first round. That's true. And I'm not saying Edoga is going to be the starter all season. I am sure Guyton will get his time. I just don't know if it's going to be by week one and if they want to line him up against Myles Garrett. Hopefully Chuma Edoga can hold up and play continuously to play kind of how he's been playing lately in camp. So we'll see that. Now, wide receiver is another place where there is a lot of position battle. Not for wide receiver one. Well, maybe because wide receiver one's not there because the Dallas Cowboys have not paid him. CeeDee Lamb still holding out. More wide receivers just keep getting paid. Now Tyreek Hill he didn't get an extension. It's a very interesting contract that happened. It's his same contract, no added money. They just guaranteed more money to him. It was kind of like you've been good to us. You're not going anywhere. I don't know if it's um, Tyreek went to them being like, I'm 30 now. I don't know when my fall off is going to happen speed wise, but it's coming. And, I would like a little more guaranteed money. And they gave it to him. And he was also rated the number one player in the top 100 by the players. Crazy, right? That's just not the list. The top four of them being a wide receiver, running back, then Lamar Jackson, and then Patrick Mahomes. Putting Patrick Mahomes at 4 is just asinine. But that's another story for another day. But there's been battles at wide receiver. So we know CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Ian Rappaport is saying, you know, they're not close, but they're closer than the Dak contract. I still think it'll get done by week 1, but this is the first time I'm starting to get maybe a little weary that it doesn't get done. But hopefully the Jones boys stuff, just pay the man. Okay. He's a bona fide top 5 receiver, maybe top 3. He is everything that we had hoped he would be when they drafted him, gave him 88. Pay the man his money and get him on the field, because this Dallas Cowboys offense is going to be null and void without him. Brandon Cooks, obviously wide receiver number 2. He's had flashes at camp, hasn't, overwhelmed, but there's been times where he's looked very good deep ball. And I think he's just going to continue to produce. He didn't produce at the level we had all hoped, I think, last year, but I think they need to start trying to get him the ball more. Now, behind Cooks and hopefully CeeDee Lamb, right? Kevontae Turpin is still here. I think he is going to get involved even more in the offense again, like he did more and more last year. He's going to have a big, big job on the return game. Not that he didn't in the past, but now with these new rules for the kickoff, I think he's going to be able to do some damage. If the Cowboys can get some of those creases held, he's going to break some, and the Cowboys are going to be set up, I think, a lot over the 50. I'm going to guarantee right now that he breaks at least one for a touchdown this year. I think his speed is dynamic. His ability as a return guy is going to be high profile for the Cowboys this year. But he's going to be involved in the offense as well. I don't want to buy in because I'm a little bit nervous, but Jalen Tolbert, I've been down on him since not when he was drafted. I was extremely excited. I thought he was a complete steal when they got him out of South Alabama. But he's starting to look like South Alabama Jalen Tolbert. Now, he did a little bit in camp last year as well, but the amount of players that are vouching for him that he's ready to take that step, that he has taken that step, the things that we are starting to see in camp, the amount of reps that he's getting because CeeDee Lamb is not there, is really helping him out. And I think he is ready to take that next step. I think he's going to contribute at a high level, and the Cowboys need him to. So Jalen Tolbert, obviously a lock wide receiver 3, 2A maybe, if depending. And then this is where it starts to get a little, who's going to do what, right? Jalen Brooks. Obviously, he was the camp darling last year. He balled out in camp. Didn't show as much in the preseason games, but I think what he did in camp and in practices got him on the 53. He produced a little bit sometimes in games, but not enough. And Will McClay said on an interview the other day, he's got to do a little bit more. So there is Jalen Brooks, who's out there continuously doing good things at camp. Then there's a bunch of different names, right, that have been doing different things at wide receiver for the Cowboys. Tyrone Billy Johnson has, shown up a lot. He had a couple nice catches down the sideline. He's been maybe the most consistent beyond those top guys. So he's a guy that all of these receivers after the top 2, 3 need to produce in these games and in these joint practices to try and make the 53. How many receivers are they going to hold? 5, 6? So Tyrone Billy Johnson's a guy that we need to really watch out. Jalen Cropper has been showing up somewhat. Racy McMath, I mean, that's a guy that his size, he does things that this team doesn't really have. So that's another guy that I would really be on the lookout for in terms of making this team. And then unfortunately, Ryan Flournoy, right? He was their draft pick this year. He's been injured. We weren't sure what was going to happen. It looked like he was, destined for the practice squad because he's a draft pick. They're not going to cut him. He does have ceiling ability, but now that he's kind of been practicing more, he's been showing up. So he's somebody that is now making a push to be that wide receiver 4, maybe 5, and try and impact this team in the season. And he's another guy, like I said, all of them, they need to show up in these preseason games to try and show this team, show this coaching staff that they need to be on the 53. They need to be on active roster on Sundays. And they also need to do it on special teams, right? If you're those back end kind of guys, 4, 5, maybe 6 in your position group, you need to be able to help the team on special teams too. So really interested to see how this wide receiver group battles it out. It seems like there's always a battle at wide receiver on the back end. And we'll see what happens week 1 with CeeDee Lamb. If he's not there, these guys, everybody gets bumped up a spot, right? So they all need to come ready and be prepared. A couple more positions, like I said, they're all over the field, right? We could talk about defensive ends now. Now that Sam Williams is out, we really need Marshawn Nealon to step up, and he has been, right. Players are raving about him, coaches are raving about him. I think he's showing a lot more of that pass rush ability than a lot of us thought he had coming out of Western Michigan. He was known as a bona fide run stopper. He was going to come in day one and be able to be I don't want to say elite, but very good run stopper in the NFL. But now he's showing the bend, the speed off the edge to get to the quarterback, which the Cowboys need with Sam Williams out. Up the middle of the defensive, we'll go up the middle, right? And I'll first talk about the defensive tackles. And this is a group that needs to perform flat out. Mozzie Smith was a complete disappointment last year. The coaches have been on him and on him hard all camp about his hand placement, trying to get him better. There are times where he's shown flash, but then there are times where he's looks like Mozzie Smith from last year. So I'm very interested to see how he shows up because they need him to show up. He's a first round pick. They're struggling up the middle at tackle, right? We know what Oso Digizua is. He's a star for this team, but behind him, who's going to show up, right? Carl Davis has been looking good this year at practice. They've now put Chauncey Golston in there at the tackle position instead of out on the edges. I think he makes this team. And then it's kind of like, is it Denzel Daxon or is it Justin Rogers? And I think it's going to be Justin Rogers. Daxon hasn't shown as much. Justin Rogers, obviously draft picked out of Auburn. He's 6'2", 340. He showed on tape at Auburn that he can do it. So these guys need to step up and need to step up big. Carl Davis will be on this team. Ozzie will be on this team. Chauncey Golston will be on this team. And then I think it's going to be Justin Rogers. Another position group right behind the D tackles, linebacker. And this is a position that struggled last year, right? Cowboys obviously have moved on from Leighton Vander Esch. She's not there anymore. Just a shame, the injuries that plagued him with the neck. We saw what the Cowboys defense was when he was in there and he was healthy, and then when he was not, especially against the run. He was a smart player, tough player. Definitely upset that his career was cut short. And there was safeties, Marquise Bell playing linebacker last year, and kudos to him and to them for stepping in there and doing what they did. But now the Cowboys have real linebackers. Obviously, you're going to put Micah Parsons kind of, I think they're going to have 6 linebackers, right? And you could put Micah Parsons there at the back end because he's, really a defensive end, but he's going to rove into linebacker some, and Mike Zimmer's going to have him all over the field. But if you put him at 6, who are the other 5 that are going to make this team, right? Obviously, Eric Kendricks will be on this team. He was the one, I guess you could say, splash addition for free agency. He is a veteran. He knows Mike Zimmer's system. Played with him in Minnesota, and he's been showing well. He had one day of like a back tightness, but back at practice looking good. Behind him, Damone Clark out of LSU. This is really the put up or shut up time. He has shown flashes in his time with the Cowboys. He got thrown in way more than anybody thought he was going to play, coming off spinal fusion his rookie year, but with injuries, he had to be thrown in there. There's times you see with Damone Clark when he has to think a lot. That's when he gets lost. He misses assignments. But when he's playing with other guys around him that are very smart players and they can help him out at the snap, right pre-snap, if he can just go, he's a force, and he's been looking great at camp. Everything coming out there, the videos you watch, the reports from the reporters, the sound bites from players and from coaches, Damone Clark's looking to take that next step at linebacker for the Cowboys. And then they have obviously their rookie, Leafau, who is extremely smart, flies all over the ball. We're seeing him hit. We're seeing him run, tackle, call out offensive plays. I'm really excited for Leafau. I think he was a great pick. Loved him watching his film at Notre Dame. I think he's going to bring a lot to this team. Obviously, big elephant in the room, who I'm really excited about. I think everybody's excited about is Demarion Overshown out of Texas. Rookie last year, was flashing all over the field at camp. Boom, torn ACL. Never got to see him in a preseason game. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. He looks fast. He looks recovered. I think Overshown is going to come out. Mike Zimmer's going to use him all over the field, and I think he's going to be a complete, absolute weapon for this team. So then, it's who else? Buddy Johnson, Jason Johnson, Damian Wilson, and Willie Harvey Jr. So Willie Harvey is the guy that they brought from the UFL. The Cowboys have had great success with UFL players and XFL players, right? We talked about Tolbert already, obviously Brandon Aubrey, their kicker they brought in, and now Willie Harvey, who led the UFL in tackles. He has played in the NFL, a little bit of an undersized guy, but just tackles for loss, tackle machine. He's looked really good in camp. Another really smart player. He's somebody I'm excited about, and he's somebody that can also help on special teams, like I said, with the wide receivers. I think he eventually makes this team. So if you go 6 linebackers, right, and you put Micah Parsons on there, so you're already one down, right? Damone Clark, Eric Kendricks, Demarion Overshown, Leafau. That leaves one spot, and I think that's going to be Willie Harvey. I think Damian Wilson, who they brought back, doesn't make the cut. Maybe practice squad. Buddy Johnson either. So I think the 6 linebackers eventually, 5 if you count Micah Parsons just as a defensive end. Overshown, Clark, Kendricks, Willie Harvey, Leafau. That's who I think. And then the last one I'm going to go over here is cornerbacks, right? There's a lot of guys there. Again, how many are they going to carry? 5, 6. Diggs coming off the ACL, obviously, was removed off PUP. It's looking good in camp so far. They're obviously having him on a pitch count. They're not going to push him too much, which I'm fine with. But your 1-2 punch, obviously, with a healthy Diggs is Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland. Somebody, the duo we didn't get to see as much, obviously, with Diggs getting hurt very earlier in the season at practice. You have those two. Okay, who's behind them, right? Who's your 3? Who's your 4? Who's your 5? They brought back Jordan Lewis, who has been I don't want to say a great player for them, but has really done his job. When people were really down on him early last season, he stepped up, made some really big plays for the Cowboys on the season. He's a vet. And he's been showing up at camp too. He's been one of the guys that keeps getting called out for doing great things. So I think those 3 are on the team, right? Then there is Colson, their rookie from Wake Forest. And I don't know if there's a player that I'm more excited about from this draft class. I was so excited when they got him in the 5th round. Cowboys had a 3rd round draft pick on them. They love him. They have him all over the field. Zimmer keeps just raving about him. And I think he has a chance to be a starter and really, really make an impact for the Cowboys this season is Keelan Carson. Eric Scott, last year's draft pick. Now, he was not drafted, obviously, by this regime, by this coaching staff and Mike Zimmer. He was a Dan Quinn guy, traded up for him. Didn't play at all last year. Zero impact. I honestly don't know if he was even active for one game. He's been showing up really well at camp. Maybe he's just one of those guys that, needed that kind of redshirt year. And that would be great if Scott and if Colson can really step up as young guys, and they can be those replacements for Jordan Lewis, for a Deron Bland, in case the Cowboys can't pay him because they have to pay Micah and they have to pay Dak and CeeDee. If unfortunately Deron Bland becomes a cap casualty at some point, you have these young guys stepping up that can fill those replacements. Or if for some reason they decide to move on from Diggs and pay Bland, you have this young talent behind them. But after that, in terms of corner, who else makes this team? I think CJ Goodwin does, obviously, because he's the ace in terms of your special teams. But then it's, who is it? Is it Nahshon Wright? Is it Israel Mukuamu, who's a, safety / cornerback? Both those guys have, flashed and then also showed duds during. I've always been a big Mukuamu guy, right? Check my timeline, KMess22 on Twitter. Check videos I've done. He was phenomenal in the playoff game against Tom Brady. He gives you that, size, athleticism. He can play corner. He can play safety. I like that flexibility. I've never been really a Nahshon Wright fan. I feel like every time he steps on the field, nothing really good happens. He has had a couple, interceptions in camp, and I think he may be outplaying Mukuamu slightly. So I think it's gonna be a battle there, right? So Diggs, Bland, yes. Jordan Lewis, yes. Colson, yes. I think Eric Scott, yes. 5. Do they carry the 6? Is it Nahshon Wright? Is it Mukuamu? Does Mukuamu make the team as a safety, which, I don't know how easy that's going to be, but behind, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Wanye Thomas. So we'll really see how that all breaks out. But like I said, there are position battles all over the field, and a couple more that I want to go over in future. Quarterback 2, I think that's one that obviously I will touch on more when I talk to Aiden. Not quarterback 1, obviously, but quarterback 2. Cowboys put a 4th-round pick into Trey Lance. Everyone's excited. That excitement's kind of been tampered down the way he's looked at camp. Not recently, last couple practices, looking a lot better. But what does Cooper Rush have to do to keep that number 2 job? And I think that's continued to be steady Eddie, which he has done. But I will talk more about the quarterback position battle and much more coming out of the Dallas Cowboys camp in Oxnard, California, heading into their first joint practice with the Rams. And preseason game with the Rams coming up with Aiden Powers later this week. But that was just a quick recap of multiple position battles happening right now in Dallas Cowboys camp in Oxnard, California. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hit the comment section below of, players you think are on the bubble that might make the team, might not make the team. If you agree with some of my takes, if you disagree, hit the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, Birds vs. Boys Pod. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, that's where we are as well. Apple, Google, Spotify, Twitter, Birds vs. Boys Pod. That's where you can find, daily content, memes, videos, tons of good fun there. And TikTok as well, Birds vs. Boys Pod. I am KMess22 on Twitter. Aiden, hopefully we'll be back from Florida and hurricane / tropical storm Debbie very soon. We're getting close. We are getting close to football season, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back very soon.